Life often feels like a series of mountains. We stand at the bottom, looking up at something enormous, intimidating, and impossible to climb. We think the mountain is an obstacle, a punishment, or some cruel twist of fate that prevents us from living the life we want. But what if the truth is something entirely different? What if the mountain is not blocking your path, but instead it is your path? This is the central idea behind Brianna Wiest's masterpiece, The Mountain is You, transforming self-sabotage into self-mastery. And today we are going to take a deep, soulful, and powerful journey through this book, uncovering not just its lessons, but also the life-changing wisdom that can shift how you see yourself forever. Imagine for a moment that every limitation you feel, every time you get in your own way, every habit you can't break, every fear you can't silence, these are not random flaws. They are mountains, and your destiny is to climb them. This book is not just about motivation, it's about transformation. It's about recognizing the patterns that hold you back and turning them into stepping stones toward the life you are meant to live. So, let's begin. Brianna Wiest starts with the idea of self-sabotage. Now let's pause here. Self-sabotage is not about being weak or lazy, it's about protection. The truth is, your mind has been trained to keep you safe. It creates defense mechanisms when you are hurt, when you are scared, or when you feel out of control. Self-sabotage is not an enemy, it is a guardian. But here's the twist. It is protecting you from the very life you're meant to live. Think about it. How many times have you wanted to try something new? Start a business, build a new habit, confess your feelings to someone, apply for your dream job, yet you pulled back. You procrastinated. You found excuses. You distracted yourself. That's self-sabotage. And it doesn't come from weakness, it comes from fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of change. And deep down, fear of becoming the best version of yourself, because that version demands responsibility, effort, and courage. So the first step of this book is awareness. You have to recognize how self-sabotage shows up in your life. Maybe you eat junk food when you're stressed. Maybe you binge watch shows when you're anxious. Maybe you pick fights in relationships because you fear intimacy. Maybe you downplay your dreams because you're afraid of disappointment. These are not random behaviors, they are clues. They show you where the mountain stands in your life. Wiest beautifully explains that every form of self-sabotage is actually self-protection. Your mind is trying to keep you safe in the familiar. But the familiar is not where growth happens. Growth is always in the unknown, the uncomfortable, the uncertain. And this is why the mountain exists. The mountain is the gap between the life you live now and the life you want to live. It is not there to crush you. It is there to be climbed. Now let's dig deeper. Why do we sabotage ourselves? Wiest points out a profound truth. It comes from unresolved emotions, unprocessed pain, unmet needs. When you are carrying old wounds, your behaviors reflect them, even when you don't realize it. For example, if you grew up feeling abandoned, you might push people away today so they don't abandon you again. If you grew up with financial insecurity, you might hoard money or sabotage career growth because deep down you believe success isn't safe. The patterns are endless, but the root is always the same. Emotions you didn't process become mountains you must climb. So how do we climb them? The first tool is radical self-awareness. Not judgment, not shame, awareness. Look at your patterns, trace them back. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of? What am I trying to protect myself from? Where does this come from? When you dig deep enough, you realize that the habits holding you back are not enemies, they are signals. And once you see the signal, you can change the story. The next lesson is about discomfort. Most people run from discomfort. But Wiest argues that discomfort is not your enemy. It is your compass. The things that make you uncomfortable are usually the exact things that will grow you. Comfort zones are safe, but they are also prisons. Your dream life does not exist in the comfort zone. It exists on the mountain, in the climb, in the moments when you are scared, sweating, doubting yourself, but still moving forward. And this brings us to one of the most liberating truths in this book. You don't need to conquer the mountain overnight. Transformation is not about massive leaps, it's about consistent steps. Every time you choose courage over fear, you climb a little higher. Every time you sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, you grow stronger. Every time you replace self-sabotage with self-awareness, you transform. This is the path of self-mastery. This is the climb. And as you keep walking, you realize something incredible. The mountain was never really outside of you. It was always within you. It is the version of yourself you are destined to become. And that is the most inspiring truth of all. When you start to understand that the mountain is within you, your entire perspective shifts. You stop seeing challenges as punishments and begin to see them as invitations. Every obstacle, every setback, every uncomfortable emotion, it's all a signal that there is work to be done inside. This is where Brianna Wiest emphasizes the concept of emotional intelligence, because without it you cannot climb. Emotional intelligence is the ability to sit with your feelings, to interpret them, and to respond rather than react. Most people suppress their emotions. They push them down, numb them with distractions, or deny them altogether. But suppressed emotions never disappear. They turn into patterns of self-sabotage. They become behaviors you don't understand, choices you regret, and cycles you repeat. If you want to stop sabotaging yourself, you have to face what you feel. This means allowing yourself to acknowledge pain, grief, fear, and anger without labeling them as wrong. Feelings are information. They are feedback from your inner world. And when you listen to them, you discover what your mountain really is. For instance, maybe you always quit projects halfway. On the surface, it looks like laziness or lack of discipline. But if you sit with the discomfort and ask yourself why, you might realize you fear failure so much that quitting early feels safer than risking total defeat. Or maybe you avoid relationships not because you dislike love, but because intimacy feels dangerous after past betrayals. In both cases, the mountain is not the external situation, the unfinished project, or the lack of a partner. The mountain is the fear inside you, the wound that has not healed. Climbing that mountain means slowly proving to yourself that you can endure fear, that you can trust again, that you can finish what you start. And with each small step, you build resilience. Another key insight Wiest offers is that self-sabotage often disguises itself as logic. Think about it. How many times have you justified procrastination by telling yourself you're waiting for the right time? How many times have you talked yourself out of opportunities because you convinced yourself you weren't ready yet? These thoughts feel rational, but they are often fear in disguise. The truth is, there is no perfect time, no moment when you'll feel 100% ready. Readiness comes from action, not before it. Every time you act, even when you're scared, you expand your comfort zone. You climb higher. And here's something powerful. Wiest argues that transformation doesn't happen when everything is easy and perfect. It happens when you are at your lowest, when you are tired, broken, and ready to give up, but you don't. That is the moment of alchemy, when pain turns into strength, when the mountain begins to shift under your feet. Now let's talk about identity, because this is where the deepest form of sabotage often hides. Human beings are wired to protect their identity. If you believe you are a failure, you will unconsciously act in ways that confirm it. If you believe you are unworthy of love, you will sabotage relationships to prove yourself right. If you believe you are unlucky with money, you will make choices that reinforce scarcity. This is called confirmation bias, and it is one of the most powerful forces in the human mind. To climb your mountain, you have to rewrite your identity. You cannot just change habits. You have to change the story you tell yourself about who you are. Instead of saying, "I am bad with money," you begin saying, "I am learning to manage money wisely." Instead of saying, "I am always unlucky in love," you begin saying, "I am capable of building healthy, loving connections." The shift seems small, but it changes everything. Because when your identity changes, your behavior naturally follows. This is why the climb is hard. It's not just about changing actions. It's about changing the person you believe yourself to be. And that requires courage, patience, and relentless self-honesty. Another fascinating lesson in this book is the role of resistance. Have you ever noticed that right when you're about to make a big change, start a diet, launch a project, leave a toxic relationship, you suddenly feel an overwhelming wave of resistance? That's your old self fighting for survival. Resistance is not a sign you're on the wrong path. In fact, it's usually a sign you're on the right one. Because the closer you get to change, the louder your old patterns scream. Wiest says you must expect resistance. Prepare for it. And when it comes, don't fight it, acknowledge it. See it as proof that you're growing, then move forward anyway. The mountain is not conquered by, it is conquered by walking through it. And that brings us to one of the deepest truths in this book. The mountain you are climbing is not there to test how strong you are, but to show you how strong you can become. Strength is not built in the absence of struggle, it is forged in the middle of it. Every tear, every failure, every sleepless night, these are not setbacks, they are training. They are the weight you lift to build your emotional muscles. And once you understand this, the climb transforms from a punishment into a privilege. You realize the mountain is shaping you into the version of yourself that you have always been meant to be. Breaking free from cycles is one of the most important ideas Brianna Wiest talks about. Cycles are the repeated patterns that keep showing up in your life, no matter how much you try to move past them. Maybe you always end up in toxic relationships. Maybe you always lose motivation after a few weeks of chasing a goal. Maybe you always feel like you're not good enough no matter how much you achieve. These cycles are not coincidences. They are lessons you have not yet learned. Life has a way of repeating the same test until you finally understand it. So when you find yourself facing the same kind of struggle again and again, don't see it as failure. See it as an opportunity. It's life handing you the same mountain saying, this time climb it differently. The reason cycles exist is because your subconscious mind is in charge more than you realize. 95% of your daily actions are driven by subconscious programming. That means if you were conditioned to believe love equals pain, you will keep attracting painful relationships until you change that belief. If you grew up believing success is dangerous, you will keep sabotaging opportunities until you rewrite that story. Wiest explains that breaking cycles requires two things: awareness and conscious choice. Awareness means recognizing the pattern for what it is. Conscious choice means interrupting the pattern and doing something different, even when it feels uncomfortable. For example, if you normally run away when conflict arises, the conscious choice would be to stay and communicate instead. If you normally procrastinate out of fear, the conscious choice is to take one small step forward immediately. This is how you break the cycle, by choosing differently consistently until the old pattern no longer has power over you. Another key part of the climb is learning to use pain as fuel. Most of us see pain as the enemy. We do everything we can to avoid it. But pain, Wiest reminds us, is one of the greatest teachers you will ever have. Think about your life. When have you grown the most? Was it during times of ease and comfort, or during times of struggle and heartbreak? Almost always, growth comes from pain. Pain shows you what matters. Pain pushes you to change. Pain strips away illusions and forces you to face reality. Instead of asking why me? When you're hurting, Wiest suggests asking what is this pain trying to teach me? Maybe it's teaching you boundaries. Maybe it's teaching you patience. Maybe it's teaching you that you are stronger than you ever believed. When you learn to see pain as a messenger rather than a punishment, you stop running from it. You start listening. And in that listening, you find wisdom. Now let's talk about one of the most misunderstood concepts in self-development: healing. Many people think healing means going back to who you used to be before the pain. But that's impossible. Healing doesn't mean becoming your old self again. It means becoming a new version of yourself, someone who integrates the lessons of pain and carries them forward. Healing is not about erasing scars, it's about wearing them as proof that you survived and transformed. This is why the mountain is so powerful as a metaphor. You don't climb it to stay the same, you climb it to become someone new. Wiest explains that real healing begins when you stop avoiding your wounds and start working with them. It's about giving yourself compassion instead of judgment. It's about seeing your brokenness not as weakness but as an opening, a doorway to growth. And this shift changes everything. Because when you stop fighting your pain stops fighting you. One of the most practical tools Wiest gives is reframing. Reframing means taking a situation and choosing to see it differently. For example, instead of saying, "I failed at this project," you say, "I learned what doesn't work." Instead of saying, "This breakup ruined me," you say, "This breakup showed me what I truly deserve." Reframing doesn't erase pain, but it gives it meaning. And meaning is what allows us to endure. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and author of Man's Search for Meaning, once wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." That's the essence of reframing. It transforms suffering into strength. Another big idea Wiest explores is the concept of alignment. Alignment means living in a way where your actions match your values. Most people feel lost or stuck, not because they are incapable, but because they are living out of alignment. They say they want health but keep feeding themselves junk. They say they want love but keep choosing people who don't respect them. They say they want success but spend their time in distractions. Alignment is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. When you align your actions with your true values, you feel powerful, even if the external results aren't instant. The climb feels purposeful, and little by little alignment builds momentum, and momentum builds transformation. Let's also address the role of fear more deeply. Fear is often the biggest reason people never climb their mountain, but Weiss says fear is not proof you're weak, it's proof you're onto something important. Fear is energy. It means you care. It means you're about to grow. Instead of waiting for fear to disappear, the secret is to move with it. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision that something else matters more. Every climber feels fear before stepping onto the mountain, but they climb anyway. That's what makes them climbers. And that's what will make you one too. So ask yourself right now, what is the mountain you've been avoiding? What fear has been keeping you from taking the first step? Because here's the truth, you don't need to see the whole path. You don't need to know how every challenge will unfold. You just need to start climbing one step at a time. And with each step, the path reveals itself, transforming fear into power. Fear is one of the most misunderstood emotions we experience as human beings. Many of us see fear as the enemy. We see it as something that blocks us, weakens us, and prevents us from moving forward. But Brianna Weiss invites us to see fear in a very different way. Fear is not here to destroy us, it is here to guide us. It is a signal, a teacher, a messenger that points us toward the exact places where growth is possible. Think about this for a moment. When you feel fear, what's really happening? Your mind and body are alerting you that something important is at stake. Maybe it's your sense of security, your self-image, your comfort zone, or your dreams. Fear shows up not because you are weak, but because something valuable lies on the other side. Most people respond to fear in two unhealthy ways. Some avoid it. They run, they distract themselves, they bury their feelings, they settle for less than they deserve. Others become paralyzed. They stay stuck in the same patterns, unable to take action because the fear feels too overwhelming. But the truth is, fear loses its power when you stop running from it and start listening to it. Fear is often a map. It tells you exactly where your mountain is. If you're afraid of speaking in public, that's the mountain you need to climb. If you're afraid of being vulnerable in relationships, that's where your greatest transformation lies. If you're afraid of failing, that's the path that will teach you resilience, creativity, and strength. Here's something powerful to remember. Fear is not the opposite of courage. Fear is the doorway to courage. Courage cannot exist without fear. To be brave doesn't mean you don't feel afraid. It means you feel the fear fully and still choose to take a step forward. One of the most effective ways to transform fear is through exposure. The more you face what scares you, the smaller it becomes. Imagine fear as a shadow. It looks massive when you stand far away, but as you walk closer, you realize it's not as big or as solid as it seemed. Let me share a story. There was once a woman who dreamed of starting her own business. She was passionate, talented, and full of ideas. But every time she thought about quitting her safe job, fear screamed in her head. What if you fail? What if you lose everything? What if people laugh at you? For years, she stayed stuck. Then one day she realized something life-changing. Fear wasn't trying to stop her. It was simply asking her to prepare. What if you fail meant learn how to manage risk. What if you lose everything meant create a financial safety net. What if people laugh at you meant build confidence in your vision. Instead of running from fear, she listened to it. She respected it. And she used its messages as fuel to take action. Within a few years, she had built a thriving business not because she eliminated fear, but because she transformed it. That's the shift Brianna Weiss wants us to make. Don't kill your fear, learn from it. Don't silence it, decode it. Every time you feel fear, pause and ask yourself, what is this fear trying to show me? What skill, what lesson, what preparation do I need? Suddenly, fear turns from an enemy into an ally. Another important truth is that most fear is rooted in the unknown. We fear what we cannot predict, what we cannot control. The brain hates uncertainty because it sees it as danger. That's why your fear spikes when you step into new territory. But the more you expose yourself to uncertainty, the more comfortable you become with it. Think about the first time you drove a car, started a new job, or moved to a new city. It felt scary at first, but over time it became normal. The unknown became familiar. The mountain shrank. To master fear, you must practice walking into uncertainty with faith. Faith doesn't mean blind belief. Faith means trusting that you are capable of handling whatever comes, even if you don't know exactly how. It means trusting that the universe is not out to destroy you, but to grow you. Fear and faith are two sides of the same coin. Fear says, what if it all goes wrong? Faith says, but what if it all goes right? Fear says, I can't handle this. Faith says, I will find a way. Fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal flare, guiding you to the areas of your life where strength is waiting to be born. And here's the biggest secret. The life you want is almost always on the other side of fear. If you avoid it, you avoid your destiny. But if you lean into it, if you climb the mountain it points to, you will discover a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and freer than you ever imagined. Now let's go deeper into one of the most powerful tools for transforming fear: self-trust. Because at the root of fear is often a lack of trust in ourselves. We fear failure because we don't trust that we can recover. We fear rejection because we don't trust that we are still worthy without approval. We fear change because we don't trust our ability to adapt. But what if you began building unshakable trust in yourself? What if you knew without question that no matter what happens, you will find a way forward? That's when fear loses its grip completely. Self-trust is built through action. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you face something hard and survive, every time you step into the unknown and keep going, you are proving to yourself that you can be trusted. Little by little, you create evidence that you are capable. And that evidence is what transforms fear into fuel. Imagine living your life not in avoidance of fear, but guided by it. Imagine seeing fear not as a wall, but as a compass. Imagine realizing that the thing you are most afraid of is actually the doorway to your greatest freedom. That's the power of this shift. You don't need to eliminate fear. You need to use it. Fear is the fire that can either burn you down or light your path. The choice is yours. And now, as we move forward in this journey, we will explore another mountain that almost everyone faces: the weight of emotional baggage. Because while fear points us to our path, the emotions we carry often keep us chained to the past. The question is, how do you let go of the pain you've been holding and turn it into wisdom that fuels your climb? When you finally begin to walk the path of self-mastery, you realize something powerful. The mountain that once looked impossible to climb is no longer just a block in your way. It becomes your training ground. Every struggle, every misstep, and every painful memory transforms into a lesson carved into the stone of that mountain. Instead of fearing the climb, you begin to appreciate it, because each step upward makes you stronger, wiser, and more capable. The truth is, life was never meant to be easy. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. Just like muscles don't grow without resistance, your spirit doesn't expand without being tested. The purpose of the mountain is not to punish you. It is to prepare you. Many people waste years of their lives waiting for the perfect moment, thinking that someday things will magically align. They tell themselves, when I have more money, I'll pursue my passion. When I'm more confident, I'll speak up. When the timing is right, I'll start living the way I've always wanted. But here's the harsh reality. The perfect moment doesn't exist. If you wait for it, you'll stay at the bottom of the mountain forever. The only perfect moment you'll ever have is right now, the one you're already living in. That is the gift of presence. It is the only place where transformation happens. Self-sabotage thrives in delay. It whispers that tomorrow will be better, that next month will be safer, that someday will feel easier. But someday is a lie. Every time you delay your growth, you feed the mountain and make it even larger. The only way to shrink it is to act today. Even if the step is small, even if your voice shakes, even if your heart pounds with fear, one small action right now is infinitely more powerful than 1,000 intentions for later. And this is where courage comes in. Most people think courage is the absence of fear. But real courage is acting even while fear is present. Courage is choosing to keep moving, even when your legs tremble. Courage is saying, I don't know exactly how this will work out, but I know staying where I am is no longer an option. It's about trusting that the climb will reveal what you need step by step as long as you keep going. When you finally accept that pain and fear are not signs to stop, but signs that you're growing, you unlock a new way of living. You stop asking, how can I avoid the mountain? And start asking, what is this mountain here to teach me? Suddenly, obstacles transform into teachers. Rejection becomes redirection. Failure becomes feedback. Every scar becomes proof that you were brave enough to try. And slowly, the mountain that once felt like a curse begins to feel like a blessing. But here's another truth. The climb is not just about reaching the top. If all you focus on is the summit, you will miss the beauty of the journey. The mountain is designed to change you with every step, not just reward you at the peak. It teaches patience when the road is long. It builds humility when you stumble. It grows compassion when you realize everyone is climbing their own mountain too. And it gives you gratitude for every small victory along the way. Think about this. The same way the ocean shapes rocks over time, the mountain shapes you. Every storm, every challenge, every sleepless night, it carves strength into your soul. You don't become who you are meant to be at the top. You become that person during the climb. That's why the journey matters more than the destination. The top of the mountain is not a finish line, but a mirror that reflects the person you became on the way up. Now let's return to the deepest truth of Brianna Wiest's message. Self-sabotage is not a flaw, but a call. It is a signal that your old life no longer fits who you are becoming. The resistance you feel is your inner self begging you to evolve. You sabotage because your soul knows you're capable of more, and it won't let you settle for less. Once you understand this, you stop seeing self-sabotage as a weakness and start seeing it as a compass. Every time you catch yourself procrastinating, doubting, or running from growth, you ask, what truth am I avoiding right now? What part of me is ready to rise higher? What mountain am I afraid to climb? These questions open doors that excuses could never unlock. And when you choose to answer them honestly, you start living differently. You stop blaming circumstances. You stop waiting for rescue. You stop handing your power to fear. Instead, you take ownership. You take responsibility. You say, this is my mountain, and I am strong enough to climb it. That is the moment when everything shifts. Because life doesn't reward avoidance, it rewards courage. And the most powerful act of courage you will ever commit is choosing to face yourself, your wounds, your fears, your patterns. That is where transformation happens. Not in avoiding the mountain, but in climbing it step by step until you reach a new horizon within yourself. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember this. The mountain was never in your way, the mountain is you. And once you rise above yourself, you rise above everything. And here's the secret that will keep you climbing even when the journey feels endless. At the peak of this mountain, there is not just freedom, but a new vision of who you were always meant to become. As you continue climbing the mountain of your own transformation, you start realizing that every challenge, every fear, every painful memory you encounter isn't a punishment. It's a teacher. Life doesn't throw obstacles in your way just to stop you. It presents them so that you can grow stronger and wiser. The path of self-mastery is not a smooth highway. It's a rugged trail filled with rocks, thorns, and storms. But each time you stumble, you build endurance. Each time you fall and rise again, you build resilience. That's how the mountain shapes you. It chisels away your illusions, it strips away your excuses, and it forces you to meet yourself honestly. And once you learn to see the mountain not as an enemy but as your greatest mentor, the fear begins to fade. Instead of asking, why me? You begin to ask, what is this teaching me? That single shift changes everything, because suddenly the pain is not meaningless, it has purpose. The setbacks are not proof of weakness, they are stepping stones of strength. The loneliness you sometimes feel is not abandonment, it's an invitation to connect with yourself more deeply. And the higher you climb, the more you start to understand. The mountain is not just in front of you, the mountain is you. Every fear you conquer, every limitation you break, every moment you choose growth over comfort, you're not just climbing, you're transforming. You are not only reaching the summit, you are becoming it. And the view, once you stand tall in your own power, is more breathtaking than you could ever imagine. And so as you stand at this final stretch of the climb, something within you awakens. You realize that the journey was never just about reaching the summit. It was about who you became while walking the path. About the courage you discovered when you thought you had none left. About the discipline that carried you through the dark nights. And about the wisdom born from every fall you survived. The mountain never promised it would be easy. It never promised comfort. What it offered was transformation. It stripped away the layers of doubt and fear. It tested the strength of your spirit, and it revealed a version of you that you didn't even know existed. Now, as you reach the peak, you look back at the valleys below. Not with regret, but with gratitude. Every struggle was necessary. Every scar was proof that you endured. Every setback was preparing you for this exact moment. You are no longer the same person who started at the bottom. You are stronger, wiser, and far more capable than you ever imagined. And this is the truth you carry forward. Life will always present you with new mountains. Some will seem impossible, some will terrify you, some will even break you for a while. But now you know the secret. The mountain is not your enemy, it is your greatest ally. Because every mountain you climb takes you closer to the highest version of yourself. So the question isn't whether you can reach the top. The real question is, are you willing to take the first step again and again, no matter how steep the path becomes? Because the summit is waiting. And so is the person you are destined to become. And if you've come this far in the story, ask yourself right now, what mountain in your life have you been avoiding? Because maybe, just maybe, that mountain isn't there to block your path. It's there to show you exactly how powerful you can become once you decide to climb.